Traveling the Vortex.
We join Davros as he travels the multiverse and arrives in episode 534, Race Fast, Safe Car. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How's it going, guys?
It's good now that I'm over my COVID.
It was always good to recover from COVID.
All right. First, apologies to listeners that it's been a few weeks because not only did we run up against the holidays, but I also ended up with COVID and was out for a while. So apologies that, but we're back. We're back now. The bad news is I got COVID. The good news is I got a lot of stuff watched. A lot of stuff watched.
So what'd you watch?
Glenn?
I'm just going to run down them really quick. I'm not going to do in-depth reviews about them, but I watched Love Gilda, which is the Gilda Radner documentary about her life. I finally saw Black Adam, which was pretty good. It's nothing, phenomenal and great and wonderful, but I think it's better than the reviews it's been getting. I enjoyed it. Yeah. It was a fun film.
I don't get to hate on it.
In preparations of watching A Christmas Story Christmas, I decided that I wanted to watch A Christmas Story 2, which was that low-budget low-budget sequel that they did.
I think
back in 2012. The only person that I was familiar with in it was, now I can't remember his name. Is it Daniel? No. Oh, no. He was one of the Wet Bandits, the tall guy. Daniel Stern?
Daniel Stern.
Stern played the old man in it. It's not terrible, but it's not a worthy sequel. And I think it's Ralphie, and he's in high school now, and now he wants a car as opposed to a BB gun. And the kid that's playing Ralphie, I think took it a little. I know what they were trying to do with the character, but I think he was a little over the top. Everybody else was kind of, probably tempered enough and similar to the characters in the first film, but they just, he was a little too over the top, and I think he was being pushed to be that way. So. But then I did end up watching A Christmas Story Christmas, which is a much better sequel. Really, really enjoyed it. I watched Weird, the Al Yankovic story. I don't want to disappoint Sean too much, but I wasn't a fan. I give it about 2.5 stars. So here's the thing. I really appreciate what they were doing. I know what they were going for. I got the joke. And it makes sense for Al. However, I think it was just, there was too much silly, and I know it's supposed to be silly, but it is a good Funny or Die short film. It is not a good feature-length film. So I didn't like it. And I loved UHF. I love all of Weird Al Yankovic's music. This one didn't land for me. This parody didn't land for me. I watched The Night Before, which is the one about, it's a stoner Christmas. It was not good. I did not like it. I watched Violent Night, the new one with, what's his name?
David Harbour.
Yeah, David Harbour. Good movie. Hyperviolence gets in the way. Didn't need to be there, but it's a good movie. I like the premise. They could have easily probably made it PG-13, and it has been as good as it was. It did not need to be hyper-violent. I'm getting old, and I think my sensibility for violence is probably going down. I watched 8-Bit Christmas, which probably was one of the best things I watched. It's basically a Christmas story for our generation. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. It's the one with Neil Patrick Harris, and he's telling the story to his daughter of how he got his Nintendo Entertainment System, and his sister ended up getting a Cabbage Patch Kid, and it's kind of it's a coming of age story set at Christmas when they were kids, and hijinks ensue, and it's really good. I really, really enjoyed it. 5 stars on that one. And then
I'll bump that up a little higher on the list for next year then.
Yeah.
I saw A Bad Mom's Christmas come across one of my feeds, so I decided, I couldn't watch that without watching Bad Moms. And so I watched it. That's the one with Christina Applegate, Mila Kunis, Kristen Bell, and Agatha. Hahn.
Catherine Hahn.
Catherine Hahn. Good movie. It was a lot of fun. Pretty silly, but fun and interesting, and I liked it. A Bad Moms Christmas, on the other hand, not a very good movie. It's a sequel, and of course it understandably so brings their moms into it, and that's Susan Sarandon, and I can't remember the other two actresses. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't great. And then here's the other one that Sean's going to be upset that I didn't like: Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
You take that back, sir.
Absolutely love the premise of it. I completely appreciate that the originality and what they were trying to do. There's way too much silly that gets in the way. Way too much silly gets into the way of a good story. And so that was enough to really derail it for me as far as enjoyment.
Huh.
And that was it.
Quite a bit.
It was quite a bit. When all you can do is lay on the couch all day. You just kind of hit stream this.
You had an eventful COVID.
Yes. I don't think I've watched that many films altogether. That's from the 19th to the 24th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
What's that? 5 days? 5 days and that many films. And that's not including ones that I didn't put on Letterboxd, because I actually still watched Christmas Vacation, Love Actually, some of my Christmas staples, Muppet Christmas Carol. Was one other Christmas one that I watched that is Die Hard. So those were even on top of everything that I just said. Those were just new ones that I hadn't seen yet. Crazy. Anyway, what'd you guys do?
We introduced the kids to Nightmare Before Christmas.
Ooh, what'd they think?
Okay. I don't think they loved it, but
they might still be a little too young for it.
Yeah, Liam loved Halloween so much this year, and then was afterwards watching YouTube videos that featured Jack Skellington in it. I was like, well, maybe he might be interested in kind of, bridging that gap. And they were interested for a little bit and kind of lost interest after a while. Yeah. So, but that's kind of be expected at that age. They made it through most of it though, so I was impressed by that.
That's good.
Other than that, I finally got Orville season 3 finished.
Yay!
Which was good, but it felt a little too drawn out. It felt like they could have tightened it up a little bit. I don't know why some of those episodes were an hour and a half. It just felt very long. Good storytelling, and the growth of the show as a show and what it's doing, I heartily applaud. I just kind of wished it was a bit more condensed. I had to watch some of them in 2 sittings because it just got too late at night and I needed to go to bed. So I'd rather be able to have them a little shorter and maybe do 2-parters out of them instead of one long episode through some of them.
Huh.
That was my only complaint with it, though. I thought it was great. And we had a good Christmas. Everyone came to us, and the kids enjoyed all their presents and really got into opening everything. So,
yay!
How about you, Sean?
Well, I will also do a quick rundown. Like Glenn, I kind of binged a whole ton of new to me Christmas movies, including The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, which I'd never heard of. But it's a Rankin and Bass, and it's
yeah.
I didn't know it was based on a book either by what's his name, Dahl, and yeah, it was an interesting one. That's all I can say about that one. We watched Spirited, the Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell movie, and I will be honest, I went into that very skeptical because Will Ferrell's not my favorite, and I love Ryan Reynolds, but I'm kind of tired of the Ryan Reynolds shtick, and I knew I was going to get both of them. And I will say this: first of all, it's a musical from the same group that did The Greatest Showman. And it is a surprisingly different and fresh take on A Christmas Carol. They made me care about that story again, which is really tough to do anymore because, it's been done and done and done and done, and we've had Muppet Christmas Carol, so we're kind of done with it. We don't have to do it again.
We've reached the apex.
That's exactly it. But this was a very cool way to tackle the material. So we enjoyed that one immensely. We also watched Violent Night, which I think Mel and I probably enjoyed a little bit more than Glenn did because we don't mind the hyperviolence, at least not yet. But I just loved the fact that it was very knowingly playing with the genre of Christmas movies while acknowledging that it itself was a Christmas movie.
Yeah, yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Oh, sure, sure.
And we also watched Christmas Story Christmas, which I agree with you. I just felt it was just there's a certain amount of, well, this feels like a cash grab, or this feels like you're doing it just for. This didn't have any of that. This one really felt like its heart was in the right place, and the nostalgia was there, and most importantly, the ghost of Darren McGavin loomed large.
Yeah.
But it was done in a very respectful, touching way. And I was really surprised by that one. Appreciated it. And we also did make it out to see Avatar, and it is amazing.
Is it as good as the first one, in your opinion?
That's a really tough call to make, quite honestly. Visually, the effects work is just beyond stunning. I mean, you cannot tell what's real, what isn't. There's no quote unquote obvious effects. You just completely fall under the spell that is Pandora, and everything is gorgeous and impressive and amazing. I think the impact is a little lessened just because we have seen it before. Mm-hmm. And so stepping back into that world is exciting, but it doesn't hit you over the head with the splendor of it necessarily. But it's so much a bigger, the story is better. The vistas are bigger because we're traveling to other parts of the planet now, and including the oceans and the biomes and whatnot. And it's the first part is kind of a recap and dealing with the fallout of the first film. Mm-hmm. The middle section is very much a Pandora travelogue. So it's come see the beauty of the planet. And then the third act is kind of the action set piece, which is James Cameron's greatest hits. Because there's a little bit of Abyss, there's a little bit of Titanic, there's a little bit of Aliens, there's a little bit of Terminator. I mean, it just kind of all, it feels familiar, but it's in a good way. And you're going, yeah. And I'm ready for the third one. So.
Was it worth the long wait?
That's another really tough question. I know a lot of people have been asking, does anybody even care about Avatar anymore? And I've always been, and admittedly, yeah, I'm a Cameron fanboy. So I've never understood the people who like, I get not liking a movie. I can understand that. But the ones that are just actively, oh, I'm so disinterested in that. It's like, but you have to admit it was impressive for what it did, for the time it came out. And everybody that's betting against Cameron, it's like, you should know better. The dude's got, when he's directed 2 of the top 5 grossing films of all time, he probably knows what he's doing. And, we've already today cleared $1 billion worldwide. So it's halfway to being profitable. Yeah,
all of that aspect of it alone just makes me go.
That to be honestly, that's one of the things I appreciate about him so much is just the can you imagine spending all this money and getting on the board, getting the studio behind this, and then on the press tour making that statement? Yeah, it has to be like the number 4 or 5 top grossing film of all time just to break even. How many studio executives have heart attacks when they suddenly started doing the math? No, I was excited to go back, and I did. I fell right back into it again. We rewatched the first one beforehand, but even the quote unquote gimmicky 3D, which I've never felt was a gimmick with Avatar. It's like looking through a picture window, and it's just so easy to get sucked back into the splendor of this world. It's really cool. So yeah, I thought it was very worthwhile. Maybe just a half step below the first one, but still right up there.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
Well, let's talk about some news.
We got a trailer.
We got a trailer. Woo-hoo.
A little bit of Donna in there.
You guys still don't think it's the Toy Master or Toy Master?
I assumed it was the
Toy Maker,
Celestial
or do
Toy
you?
Maker.
Well, not Celestial, but the Toy Maker.
Yeah, the Toy Maker.
I'm sold on it being the Toy Maker, which I have nothing to go off of that, just other than internet scuttlebutt and the look of his costume. But
Yeah, I'm kind of the
yeah,
same way.
I'm on board with it. Why not?
I'm still there. I think they may turn around and surprise us again in 11 months, but I think it is. And we got a shot of a couple of comic characters that looks like they're going to canonize. Beep the Meep makes an appearance, and then I didn't know this until the other day when somebody pointed out there's a I think it's a Rarth warrior, which is also in the Star Beast comics. So that's coming soon as well. So, which gave me an idea that I need to talk to you guys about afterwards that we should have talked about beforehand.
That's where my brain went, and I forgot.
Yeah.
I think I'm on the same track as you.
I think you are.
Yeah, it was a good trailer, and it certainly whet the appetite for a special that's going to be another year out still.
Yeah.
But okay, tease me with it.
I was very surprised we got one so early, considering how far out it is.
I thought the same thing, except I think that RTD really felt like he needed to give Who fans something on Christmas, and so I think that's probably why he decided, okay, you don't get a special this year, but we'll give you this little treat. Maybe it'll, hold you over for a little bit. So I liked it. I thought it was good.
No, it won't.
Good.
Where's my Red Nose Day special? Where's my mini-sode? Give me a full season of Paul McGann while I wait.
We still may get minisodes.
Yeah, very easily could.
Yeah. All right. Well, and then of course the other thing was we got a sneak peek at the wardrobe for the next Doctor.
I like it. I think it looks good on him.
I do too.
Pretty sharp.
It's very eye catching, but it's also not garish or loud. It's very. No, I don't even say subdued. It's very Doctor like. It feels like sort of a modern Doctor look, and I really like it a lot. And it suits him really well. It's
a little retro, which I kind of like. A little vintage look to it with that kind of mustard yellow color. It very much looks like something that would be easy to throw together as a cosplay outfit, which I'm always appreciative of.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I haven't made up my mind on if I like it or not. I think I have to see it in practicality. I think I need to see him run. That's always the determining factor.
Doesn't he?
He does have full-length pants, which is an automatic upgrade for Jodie Whittaker's costume. No ankle showing here. Thank you very much. But it's just, that's kind of the deciding factor. He's got those penny loafers or whatever they are, and the jury's out.
Thick soles on them.
They do have some thick soles on them, but the jury's out as to whether or not they are corridor practical. So
they kind of look like Peter Capaldi's were, just not black.
He had a little more almost of an Ugg boot kind of thing going on.
His were more almost combat boots. These have a wingtip featured to them, but other than that, they're pretty similar. It's bright, but it's also got that kind of retro-esque feel to it, but still feeling modern at the same time.
It's very much you put a cape on it, and Pertwee could have worn it.
You both have said retro, but I don't see the retro.
I think it's the checkered aspect of the pants and the jacket.
Really?
Just gives it kind of a, I think, maybe more classic feel to it. I don't know.
There's just something about it that says 70s to me.
Huh. Okay.
I can't put my finger on it anymore. And honestly, I really do think it's the color.
The coloration,
it's got that kind of avocado green.
The coloration,
when you see that as a refrigerator, you go, "Oh yeah." But I don't mean that.
Did you
say
it was avocado green?
No, it's got the same feeling of an avocado green. When you see an avocado green appliance, and you think to yourself, "Wow, this kitchen hasn't been updated in a while." That outfit kind of seems like it would be at home in a place with an avocado green refrigerator. They just, you know what I'm saying? It just has that vibe to it. So I really think it's probably just the color.
It's retro in color. I'll give you that. I still don't get a retro vibe, but I can see where you're associating it with 70s colors. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably where my brain wants to say it.
Okay. All right. Well, time will tell. Eventually, we'll get to see it.
Nothing on the companion's outfit?
Oh,
Young Rose?
I mean, she's her outfit's cute, but hers is kind of, to me, was a little more run of the mill modern. So
Yeah.
it was a cute outfit on her, but it's not something that I went, oh wow, because I have a feeling like most companions, her outfit probably will change. Whereas I don't think Shooty's will change as much. We might get a David Tennant, Matt Smith kind of thing where there's some variation on the outfits.
Color shirt.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't see. I see hers probably changing frequently. I just imagine we got to see in that same video that they revealed his outfit. I think we probably got to see her outfit for the first story that they were filming. So,
Yeah. I was same boat. I kind of assumed, this is just one of the outfits she'll wear.
I agree. And the only thing that I'm a little disappointed with her outfit is it's contemporary, which probably means that she's from present day Earth.
I just kind of figured she was going to be.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the default setting anymore. But I'm always hopeful that we'll get somebody that's not from around here. I understand the reasoning; it totally makes sense, and yet I'm always hopeful.
Not everybody can be Leela the Sabatine.
This is true. There's only one Leela.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
All right, well, let's move on to our reviews.
The Time War, Volume 4.
From Big Finish Productions. Doctor Who, The Eighth Doctor Adventures. The Time War, Volume 4.
We are from another universe. One that was at war, or rather, one that had recently been at war. We have knowledge of the future. We have to take advantage of that.
Ah, Davros, there you are. You're up.
You surprise me every day.
The time strategist, he's coming for you.
Stop him! They're all going to die if you let him do this.
You are the Doctor. You are the enemy of the Daleks.
Now listen, you don't look quite yourselves. I'm sure if we had a chat, we...
It's party time! Shut up and don't move.
Sorry, who are you?
You don't know?
Never seen you before in my life.
Come on, make a move. I'd love you to find out exactly what a Dalek gun does to someone.
Exterminate! We will return, restored, stronger, immortal, and we will rain down fire upon you and all your people!
Big Finish. We love stories.
Whole planets have shifted. Some have vanished altogether. War is over. But there is no peace.
Palindrome. The Eighth Doctor and Bliss are dragged into the Time War as the Daleks replenish their army using Davros himself. In an alternate universe, Davros lives in peace, until the Doctor and Bliss arrive and the Daleks emerge in a new reality.
Bum, bum, bum.
We're reviewing part 1 and part 2 together, right? We're not going to break these.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I will concur somewhat with that bum bum bum.
I concur with the bum bum bum. I thought it was fantastic.
It's a story that first of all, for us, the elephant in the room, palindrome stories are hard. The first short that we worked on was a time travel bit with palindromes, and the months and months and months that went into trying to make sure that things lined up and that the story made sense forwards and backwards and on and on and on and on. And there was a tiny piece of me that died listening to this because they made it look easy. it's so well written.
But it's also not a 100% true palindrome.
Right,
like
and
they were
that's
trying
right.
to do.
I would agree.
The
I think
end diverges from that and becomes
Right.
something else.
they don't
And
go.
that's very true. I
they
don't want
don't-
to call it a cheat, but it has an out.
Right.
That
They
our
don't go.
story didn't have.
They don't go full bore into the gimmick that we did, and I think that's why it works well for them. So
Yeah, because it never feels like you're retreading the same events, but it's so different perspective from when you listen to it the first time that it doesn't feel like a retread at all.
right.
No, I starting it off and getting this befuddled little scientist and his wife, and I kept listening to him. And I thought, man, that really sounds like Terry Malloy. And then she called him Davros, and I went, oh, okay. What is happening here? What are we doing? And then they died, and then he woke up. And so when you get that right off the bat, day 5, like, oh, I thought it was like just a cracker story. I really liked the way this was set up. I think probably my only problem with it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you guys might remember better than I want to say it's Inferno when they shunt the Doctor into an alternate parallel universe. Isn't there some spiel or line that Pertwee gives about how much this doesn't happen, and that the parallel universe thing it's so incredibly extremely rare that this was such a fluke that he wound up there, and they really for the most part hadn't touched parallel. If I'm thinking correctly, that was kind of Doctor Who's thing, is you have all in time and space to play with, but you don't do alternate dimensions, you don't do parallel worlds. And it really wasn't until the Pete's World Cybermen that we kind of got another one, if I'm thinking of this correctly.
I don't remember well enough. You might be right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're pretty close. I can't remember fully either.
I genuinely want to say that it was a rule, maybe not a hard and fast rule, but it was a kind of a rule that they had established within the show that, you just don't do that. I do think
it's a rule that Big Finish hasn't adhered to as much as the televised stories. So
this is also
Big
true.
Finish has done more multiverse type stories, especially throughout this Time War, obviously, than the TV show has.
And I've kind of still chalked it up to alternate timelines does not necessarily equal alternate universe or and it really wasn't until the Timeless Child saga kind of came along and said, oh no, this is a thing, which is another reason why I didn't like that particular story, was because it felt like, well, you're spitting in the face of this kind of sort of hard and established rule that I really need to go look up and see if it's a thing, and then maybe I'll feel better about it. But this one really kind of takes the whole,
it's probably
we're doing
just
multiverse.
It's probably just as hard and established as the 13 Regenerations.
But that's probably the only real qualm that I have with this one, and it very easily could be fixed if I'm remembering this incorrectly. So somebody out there in listening land, let me know if I'm crazy. But it just seems like we kicked open the door and went, yep, multiverse, everybody's doing it, so here's ours. And the whole story is hinged around this idea of merging all these different universes in order to have infinite Daleks, which is a terrifying idea. I mean, oh my God, can you imagine?
I think
and honestly, they did this back in 2020.
Yeah,
so they would have done it kind of before everybody else started doing it.
Right.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is when this first when it first started to reveal this whole multiverse idea, I sort of thought the same thing. I thought, okay, is this just Doctor Who's jumping on the jumping on the bandwagon of the multiverse thing that's happening this year? And then I thought, well, no, just because I'm listening to it this year doesn't mean that it was released this year. And I did the same. I looked back and I went, oh, this is 2020. So they actually were kind of on the forefront of this before everybody really kind of started jumping on this bandwagon. So, of course, I mean, Loki was, 2 years ago? So, I mean, they were already working on it, but...
Working towards it.
Loki, Spider-Man. There have been several...
Right. But so I thought the same thing, but then I was okay with it. I'm not, even if that is something that was established, they have been played so fast and loose with the lore of Doctor Who for years with everything, with lots of stuff. And I think anybody that gets upset over something being, completely, if it just completely spits in the face of something that's established, then yeah, it bugs me a little bit. But little things like this, to me, this isn't a big deal. I mean, if like you said, the empty child kind of blew that wide open for us first, and this even was before that, right?
Yeah.
Or empty child, not empty child.
Timeless Child.
Timeless Child. Thank you. But this, yeah, I think those were probably even right around the same time. So and the multiverse thing was really kind of pushed more just even recently with Flux.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think I had so much of a problem with them playing fast and loose with the idea of a multiverse. I think that the thing that I felt was a little unsettling was the fact that it was really stretching my brain to make sure that they were making it work right. And I think I've landed on everything does work out, and it almost requires a second listen to see if I could nitpick any points where I think they kind of got the continuity wrong. But overall, I think they did a really good job, and overall, I enjoyed it. And I was like you, when I heard Terry Malloy, we fortunately have had the benefit of meeting Terry Malloy and knowing what he sounds like in real life. And so it was very much this sounds familiar. And then when she says Davros, it was almost like cementing. I was kind of like you, Sean. I was like, oh yeah, okay. So this is Terry Malloy. He's doing Davros here. There were, I think, a few dropped things that called back to the I, Davros series, which unfortunately we haven't all reviewed. I did listen to that series years back. So there were some little nuggets of callbacks to that that I thought, not just little ones, just little hints to it that I was pleased with. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was pretty well done, very, very well done, and hopefully structured well enough that it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it was probably one of the best Big Finish stories that we've listened to in a long time. I think the way it's structured, the way they execute it, all just fits so well together, and then it does take the turn at the end to take it so it's not a true palindrome, but that's okay because that's where the story needs to go in order to not just be a constant loop anyways.
Right,
you gotta have to break that loop to move forward. And my only small complaint is it was cool to have the Nightmare Child reference, but then afterwards I thought to myself, well, why would they do that when they didn't establish how the Daleks ever brought Davros back or how he was brought into the Time War? That's never been really explained. And this would be a fantastic story of how it happens.
Yeah.
This story would be the most epic way to bring Davros back into and also why he kind of looks and sounds a little bit different from when we've seen him in the past, because he's a different variation of Davros. It would fit a lot of things for Davros's timeline and make more sense had that one little drop line not been in the story.
I had sort of felt like they were going there with it. But yeah, they do drop the fact that, he was presumed dead after they said presumed dead after facing the Nightmare Child or something like that.
Yeah. And then you hear him talk about that too. Yeah. So I think that is the only part of it that brings it down for me is in the scope of the bigger picture that kind of drops it a little bit.
And we do sort of start to establish and unravel why what's happening is happening because of the events that the were valued did previously, and that ended up causing the time strategists to have to kind of take this approach to bringing the Daleks back. So,
yeah, this whole box set retroactively fixes my problems with the last story, which I kind of figured it would.
It's I want to throw out, first of all, my hat is off to Nick Briggs once again for not only providing the voices of the Daleks and doing so in his usual outstanding stellar way. In particular, his time strategist, which has this nasty rumble to the weight of this thing. And when it, we'll get a little bit more into the final, but when this thing talked, it was like, eek. And it's one that I was listening to in the car, and had it on for just a little bit while Mel and Shai were in the car with me. So I had to stop and kind of explain to Mel what was going on so that she wasn't completely lost. Started it back up, and Shai pipes up from the back seat, "I don't like that monster." Which my first, my first instinct was, yeah. And my second was, oh my God, I've been making her listen to this. I kind of forgot that she was there for a minute. They're talking about horrible genetic manipulation and things, and the time strategist is going on and on and on. It's like, oh yeah, let's
we'll listen to that later. Then.
The Wiggles. Okay, we'll put some of this on. But yeah, he creeped me out in several scenes. Just listening to that bombastic, the bass that emanated out of that thing was incredible. But yeah, just all around, this was a really cool story, and I agree with Keith. It's like this is a, as far as I'm concerned now, it's in my head canon. I don't really care if the Nightmare Child reference doesn't work or not. For me, this is kind of how Davros came back, and I'm just gonna. Yep, it would be nice if we had the, in addition to this grand timeline of the Time War, if we had where certain events in proper Who were inserted into this, so that we kind of knew, if we knew, is this all meant to be set up before this, or from different people? I suppose it could just be from different people's perspectives.
Although it does, so explain how Davros. Well, no, because that's kind of resolved in the David Tennant story, anyways. Never mind. I was gonna say it could explain how he escaped from the Nightmare Child to be with the 12th Doctor later down the road, but the 10th Doctor story takes care of that, anyways.
Yeah, and then there's that part of me that just has to accept that Doctor Who villains are never killed, even when they are.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I just need to let that go, that I'm not going to get the explanation of how the Master got out of the fire when we saw him burn alive in the 5th Doctor era and then comes back. I'm just not going to get that. I need to let go of it.
Am I remembering wrong that the Time Strategist was also in Time Lord Victorious?
I think he was.
Or is that just a different...
Yeah. No, he was. Yeah.
Is it the same strategist?
Yeah, it's the same strategist.
Do we think?
Yep. And in fact, I kind of got the impression. Well, I think we're going to get there, but I got the impression that this is where, in my headcanon was this is where he ends up bringing the Emperor back, and this is the Emperor that we end up with in the Daleks series that we got as well.
Oh, okay.
I got the impression that this was where this has happened, that he's brought the Emperor into the picture. So. Which, for me, this whole multiverse thing is a wonder for me. We'll talk a little bit more in a little bit.
Of course, it's a wonder for you, more Alex.
But it also
it
also fixes everything, because now I can say, okay, well, those Daleks from the comics back in the 1960s that had a completely different origin story. Well, of course they did, because they're from another dimension, and they were actually, everything was pulled across, together as one. So this all works really well for making everything canon Dalek-wise.
It makes everything canon, and
just Scream of the Shalka suddenly works as a different universe. That this regeneration went differently here.
Right.
It really does.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our Doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong Doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Travelling the Vortex.
Should we move on to Dreadshade
Absolutely.
before we keep talking about restoration of the Daleks? The Time Lords, including the General and the 12, adjust to life after the Time War until the Doctor and Bliss return with a warning.
This is an odd backhanded compliment. This is the weakest story in the box set, but it's still pretty darn good. I just don't know that they resolved anything in the course of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally.
I kind of thought about this.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it doesn't really resolve anything, but it's important to take that step back and get into the mindset of the rest of the universe in order to understand where they are and why they they don't remember the Daleks and how the Time War has officially ended, and all of this world building and situations basically setting up so they can resolve it in the next story. It's essentially a penultimate episode to a story that has been brewing since back in the last box set, and it's moving all the pieces into the correct place in order so they can have the finale they need to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a necessary story because of everything you just said, but it really does kind of feel like it's a bit unresolved as well, like Sean was saying.
And I think had it not come on the heels of Palindrome, it probably would be considered a much better story too.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Also a very valid point.
Which, I don't know if you guys listened to the bonus features, but Palindrome was originally intended for the previous box set.
Oh, is that right?
The previous box set.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they, for whatever reason, I can't remember why, they had to bump it. And so they got the Valeyard story written and put in there. And so it kind of just shuffled everything out.
Well, it was probably a COVID thing because they were shuffling a lot of stuff around when people could do it and getting people ready to record in closets and things like that. So
yeah, I don't think they ever really specified.
Which I suppose that's an added impressive tip of the cap, is not just that, we got this absolute banger of a story, in this box set, but the fact that they made this during this is 2020. This is the COVID year, and they made this. It's like, wow. Nice going, guys. I didn't do much during COVID. Now I feel really inadequate because you tapped my Palindrome story that I did when I wasn't sick. You did it while everybody was sick.
I think my biggest complaint about this one, and it's more of just a preference thing and not a story issue, is the Dreadshade, I liked the concept of it, but the way that she performs the character was almost grating on my nerves. And I like the idea of a dangerous entity because the reaction to its fear of something is what creates that energy that becomes then a defense, and in this case a weapon. The concept of that was really cool, but I really could have done. I think that the actress could have dialed it back a little bit. Maybe the Dreadshade gets too much dialogue. Maybe that's what it is, and she feels like because what she has, she's trying to, in audio, present the fact that she's fearful, very fearful of the Time Lords, very fearful of eventually the Daleks again. I think that was probably her pushing it in order to convey that. But maybe if there had been a lot less doing that as the character and a lot more surrounding characters explaining it better, I think maybe that wouldn't have been as grating. But that was my biggest complaint about this, was I just felt that was a little her performance. Nothing against the actress, because she was also Tubor, which was she did fine, but just as the Dreadshade, she was just a bit too over the top, I thought.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's hard to say a lot of good things. I mean, it's hard to say a lot of things about this when Palindrome is such a good story.
Yeah, well, and when this one is so much of them trying to figure out what's going on and why
Right.
they don't remember what this war was.
Right.
We all know what it is, so it's like it's interesting to listen to, but we're also drumming our fingers, going, "Okay, well, get to what we know. What we know."
Yeah.
Right.
Come on, catch up.
I also am a little torn over the 12 because while at least within what we've reviewed, we've not had a whole lot of exposure to the other personas.
Right.
But the last time that we saw her ostensibly working as a force for good because of her inhibitor, I genuinely enjoyed the character. And I was really intrigued to find out more about what we didn't know. And now that same character has suddenly been flipped, and it kind of, I don't know, it seemed flipped without a catalyst almost. They just, the inhibitor's not working, and I'm going to use this to my advantage. Let me out, and I'll help you. I just, but again, maybe that's just because I don't know enough about.
Well, I understood why they did that, though, because the catalyst was only, or the inhibitor was only in place because of the Time War, and the fact that they were fighting the Daleks and the events that led up to it that nobody remembers. So it's kind of
true.
It's kind of the same reason why the Dread Shade is no longer paralyzed by fear when the 12 comes across her, because she forgot the Daleks and doesn't know what it is. So it's all, I think everything kind of ties back into that memory loss of what the Valiard did.
Yeah, that's true.
What was the story with River Song that she went and picked up Bliss before she had encountered the Doctor yet? Do you guys remember what I'm talking about?
That was the one. That
she-
was the one with it was another version of the 12, but not the 12 yet.
I think
that was the 9, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like, no, whichever one was,
or
the
was it the
Kleptomaniac,
11?
where they're all prisoners.
I think the 9.
Yeah.
All the companions.
Yeah,
companion collecting.
And so there was a dropped line where Bliss remembers that, right? When she's starting to regain her memories, doesn't she remember the events? Because I thought she name dropped everybody in that, or maybe she just said. I remember hearing that and thinking, oh, okay, they finally have tied this in. I was expecting maybe they will later, but I was sort of expecting more of a connection to that, but at some point. But they do at least mention it now. So
I think it was when she regains her memories. She regains her memories of all because that was supposed to be an alternate version of her.
Yeah,
based off of the Bliss story we had in the beginning of the last box set. And now she has that memory in addition to all the other ones that she had lost.
Right.
It was nice having the General being Ken Bones, who is not the General we know from, Day of the Doctor and Time of the Doctor and the televised stories.
Makes for a nice bit of continuity through thread there.
Yeah. Because I think this is the first time we've come across him, so I'm looking forward to, now that he's here, that it kind of helps tie into that continuity.
All right, well, let's move on to the next one.
Restoration of the Daleks. The Time Strategist restores the Dalek armies to the universe, but wants to dispense with Davros.
As good as Palindrome is, I really feel like this matches it for being the epic finale piece. My only qualm with this one is it felt like maybe it was about 10 minutes too long.
Yeah, I think at the end
it's just a little stuffed.
At the end, it sort of feels like it's dragged out a bit. Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's a very Russell T kind of the season finale,
right? Bloating the last story. Yeah, I would agree.
But again, just about every I love anachronistic planets that are, oh, we've got swords and science. All right. I love it. I love that stuff. I love the you know, oh, this poor man's helping us out. Yeah, well, we know who that is, don't we? I loved the interplay between the Doctor and Davros, how they continue to manage to pick up on that conversation from Genesis. And it feels like that, you know, that idea has just carried forth in every iteration of every conversation that they've ever had between the two of them. We're still dealing with that same argument. And I love that. And then, of course, Davros being Davros, he's got a trick up his sleeve with this. Oh yeah, now we can do this, and there'll be different Daleks to destroy the Daleks. Ha ha ha! Which it just, you know, it's all shades of remembrance that there's a Dalek civil war that raged because some of them were loyal to him and some of them were loyal to the Emperor. And oh, surprise, we brought the Emperor back. I was like, oh, yeah, just put it in my ear holes. I need more. Keep going. You know? I just sat there with the, you know, just I am along for the ride. Take me. I'm gushing. Somebody else take over because
I thought it was good. I don't know if it was as good as that, but I can't kind of explain why it didn't feel that way. I think maybe that overstuffed aspect of it felt like there was just so much going on that it was hard to. It was a little hard to kind of keep up and keep going with it.
I'll agree with that, but I didn't feel that way until much closer to the end. Like I was totally on board with every decision they made throughout this, throughout the run of this thing. And even Bliss managing to talk the Time Lords into coming down and rescuing people. And it's like, oh yeah, the cavalry's finally here. It's time. You know, we're going to get these TARDISes landing and people are, you know, piling in and yay. But yeah, it wasn't until the end bit that it was just like, okay, wrap it up. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that I think what I liked a lot about this was that the doctor really feels like he's on his forefooting on this one as well, because he's sort of manipulating both sides of this. He's using the time strategist against Davros. In turn, he's using Davros against the time strategist, who is in turn using the Emperor against Davros. I think that I liked that, the way that the Doctor's kind of manipulating things and always seems to be just one step ahead of what everybody else is doing. And so I kind of like that aspect of it, because it seems like a lot of the Doctor stories that we've been listening to, the Doctor feels like he's been on his back footing. And I think part of that's because the Eighth Doctor's reluctance to get involved in the Time War. And so I think that that's why the stories that preceded this sort of felt like they were having to put him off his guard for the most part. And I think that, and Palindrome, I think, does a good job of putting him on the forefront as well. The problem with that one is he doesn't see it coming because time has been running backwards in such a way. But in this one, it's very much him seeing the cards in front of him and playing the cards right. I liked that about this story.
And he's really not in Palindrome all that much.
No, he's not.
Either.
Yeah,
so,
it's a very Dr. Light story.
This is kind of a nice reshifting of, despite all of the chaos and everything that's going on, putting that spotlight back where it belongs.
Right.
And letting him deal with the chaos of the events.
And I think Bliss throughout this box set has been fairly solid too. I really liked her relationship that she's developed with Rasmus, despite the Doctor's, you know, chagrin, I guess. That's not the right word, but you know, he would probably rather them not have this sort of friendship and camaraderie. But the fact that they have it, and she's going to utilize it when she needs to. I mean, it almost feels like there's almost a friendship there too that I like.
Well, and
It makes her feel less dependent on the doctor and more, okay, I
Right.
can do my own thing.
and his trust in her also makes it beneficial for them. So I agree.
And that was a large part of the last box set too, because those two went off together to other planet.
Yeah, that's
came
true.
back, and so it helped build that groundwork.
I just continue to love Bliss. I almost hesitate to say this, but it's in some ways it feels a little bit like Clara done right, because we start with this kind of impossible problem that she's a paradox, that she exists and doesn't because of the Time War. And we delve a little bit into it and then kind of sort of wrap it up and allow her to be her own person, as opposed to continually roping her back into this, you're a thing, you're a plot device, as opposed to a character.
Yeah.
That's a little harsh, but a little harsh on Clara writing, but we've been down that road before. No need to rehash all of that.
All right, well,
I was just super impressed with it across the board.
Yeah,
the entire box set overall, I think, is probably one of the best Eighth Doctor Time War box sets that they've done, and probably one of the best overall Time War stories spread out. Starting with the Valeyard stuff, leading all the way through this, has been a fantastic run.
Yeah, I concur. All right, well, let's move on to our next piece, which to me maybe slides us back a little bit, but go ahead.
This is not in the right place. A heart on both sides. After her medical work on Terminus, Nyssa is now the controller of a hospital ship, the Traken. As the universe burns in the crossfire of the Time War, she and her assistant travel to a planet close to Gallifrey where they are needed more than ever. A long time ago, Nyssa knew a Time Lord and understood his people, but it seems they can change. This should have been the setup to that War Master story.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you 100%. I can't for the life of me. I didn't dislike the story. I think this story was a good little, what it is, a short trip. It was an interesting little story from a companion's perspective, companion's point of view. I honestly did not right away get that the assistant that was the doctor for a while. It did take me a little while to go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, that totally makes sense, because it's, gradually revealed that he's a Time Lord, and then it's gradually revealed that it is the Eighth Doctor, and they never lets on to Nyssa who he is. And so it's a nice little self-contained story, but all along, because of where it's been placed in this guide that we were using, all along I'm distracted because I'm trying to figure out why it's here, and there's absolutely no reason for it to be here.
It totally should have been with the War Doctor story that she was in. This explains how she was doing what she was doing in that story.
Exactly, yeah.
Which I appreciate the callback. I appreciate Nyssa. Again, maybe you're right. Maybe it's the placement. It just felt really completely unnecessary.
It feels like a retread.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is
because of the placement.
Because of the placement, and because of the fact that we've had the War Master on the Traken doing, or it may not have been the Traken at the time. I don't know if they ever actually named it.
I'm not sure they named it back then, but
I don't think they did.
Which is strange that they didn't, because didn't this release before that one?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, so I'm kind of surprised they did not use that.
But it just, yeah, I mean, it was just a bit of all right. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. And maybe it's just because we came off of Time War, and now we're dealing with a much smaller story, in scope, and a companion chronicle that maybe I just listened to two of them too close together, and I needed a break between them, and that may have helped my impression of it. But it was just kind of there. It was all right.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't hate it. Although I felt that I was really kind of waiting for the reveal that what was the villain's name here?
I don't remember what her name was.
Isherwood?
Yeah,
She was the villain, right?
Yeah.
And maybe this was intentional, but when she first points out that she's got this scar on her chest because of this attack, I'm like, oh, well, here's your Time Lord. This is the renegade Time Lord that she physically cut one of her hearts out in order to have this thing. And so I felt that was telegraphed way early that she's in on it. And then it didn't quite work out that way. So I was like, oh, all right. But I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. It was all right.
I think
I think had we listened to this at a different time in the timeline, it would have been a really cool. Oh, that's because we know Nissa's out there in the universe, and so it's that question of, well, what's this companion doing during the Time War? And that's really what the story does, is poses that question and tells us.
Right.
Yeah. I continue to admire Nissa and her morals and her ethics and
right,
helping where she can. And I for some reason I feel like this one did a little bit more in kind of helping to cement the idea that yes, she did cure the issue on Terminus before she went off and said, I don't know why I didn't get that impression from the other story, but the other story was just like, oh, she's on a ship. This one I really felt like she fixed Terminus and now she's doing this and then she will meet the Master. So I liked it for that element.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I felt that I think it was a little too wordy. There was too much conversation, and it's hard to do when you're doing these short stories where the companion is actually sort of narrating what happened. But it's almost a little too much character talking rather than action happening or anything. So there's not a lot of action set around this. So it becomes just more of a wordy story. Characters moving from one place to another, just talking to each other. And I think that was the other problem that I had with it.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think it even tripped up at the end that there was a continuity error between one of the offside stage directions of what a character was doing, and then suddenly they were on the other side of the room doing this, and it was like,
right,
okay, because you've been so careful about dictating. They moved here, they went and did this. There was a lot. I get what you're saying. There was a lot of that kind of wordiness to it.
Right.
Do you collect Doctor Who? Do you have Doctor Who items and you don't know you collect Doctor Who? For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world, tune in to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, a Direction Point Network podcast. I am Larry Van Rosbergen, your host, and I have been collecting Doctor Who for 40 years. With popular features like collection protection and the most outrageous offer, we have a lot of fun. Available anywhere you get your podcasts. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point Network podcast.
All right, Sean. Well, what do we got coming up next on the schedule?
Well, coming up next on the schedule, we will finish Act 2 of the Time War by kind of stepping away from the Time War for in a weird way. We're doing Classic Doctors, New Monsters, box set 2, and we will cover all 4 stories within that box set, but only the 4th story, Day of the Vashta Nerada, ties into the proceedings of the Time War. And we will kind of give a very brief cursory overview of the other stories in that set, of set 1 that kind of fit into this and where Day of the Vashta Nerada slots in between them.
Yeah.
But we will do that, and that will finish off the proceedings of Act 2. And I think Glenn should retype this whole schedule and move a heart on both sides to where it should go, and just say that this is the official approved Traveling the Vortex.
Well,
I think there's a couple other things.
I was going to say I'd have to go back and refresh myself on. There were a few other things that I think I would shift around a little bit as well,
because we were all going, why is this one here?
Yeah.
And that will finish off Act 2, and then before we get into Act 3, we have some fun 60th anniversary, the year of the 60 dealy bobbers coming up. So you can listen for that.
And you can find us at our website, travelingthevortex.com. If you get some value out of this podcast, why not put some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on the Patreon link there on our website and consider supporting us. When you become a patron of this podcast, you unlock more audios and specials by us. And you can just, even if you could just give $1 a month, that helps us keep the lights on here at Traveling the Vortex. Also, please consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to the podcast and join in the conversation on our listeners forum in Facebook. On Facebook. Anything before we close this show? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.